Hello and welcome back to another episode of My Father Before Me, a regular segment where we bring together nerds from different generations to discuss the films that define the culture and made us who we are today. I'm your host, Brennan Sem. Joining me, as usual, is the never-ending nerd and my father, Tory. How are you doing, Dad?
I'm doing lovely, but you stole my book.
I stole your book. I promised I would return it. Well, I guess it's probably a little obvious what we're talking about, but what are we going to be discussing
Well, I should
today?
hope so. If it's obvious, that means everybody's hip to the joys of the NeverEnding Story from 1984, another childhood classic. A troubled boy dives into wondrous fantasy world through the pages of a mysterious book.
Oh, yes. I would definitely say that this is one that is definitely very well known. I mean, again, this is one that I don't know if I've seen it, but when we were watching it, or when I was watching it, like every 3 scenes, I'd be like, oh yeah, I know exactly what this is. I've seen it a million different times all over the place.
I'm sure it's a pop culture reference for all the shows that you enjoy. I mean,
Yeah,
just recently, of course, we had Stranger Things. You know, one of the big hooks or whatever was them singing the pop song or whatever, the NeverEnding Story song. So
I gotta finish that show. I never went back and watched it, but the NeverEnding Story. Obviously, this is a very good one. Obviously, this was very fun.
Well, it's very impactful for kids my age. I'm awful sure I probably tried to make you guys watch it as young lads. I'm sure that's probably where you've seen some of it. But you know, because I grew up with it, of course, and it was one that I would have been 9 years old when it came out.
She's old.
Yeah, it's definitely a.
I mean, this would if you were 9, this definitely would have been made for like your age group. I mean, you were born at the perfect time for this. I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm right on because I don't know what's he. I think he's a 10-year-old or whatever. The main character during in the book. So I'm right on board there, you know, and stuff. But it is one that you talk to somebody. A lot of kids my age definitely know this movie, and of course it's seeped into culture. It's been around for a while. It's interesting to me with all of that it's not streaming very well. You know, we had trouble finding it. So I'm kind of curious why it's not out there as much, unless it's one of those that they expect that parents like me will actually just pay for it. So
probably. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it was definitely like I said, I mean, obviously considering the amount of times that I've heard of it and stuff, and then the like you say, the cultural impact that it's had, that definitely seems like a play that could be working here.
It definitely is.
I don't know where. I mean, I guess I don't know who really made it. I don't know if it would have been on a specific service or if it would have been like on just, you know, Prime.
I think what happened, so what, and this is in the IMDb trivia, so I'm not quite sure, but I think it was Warner Brothers that passed on the rights to distribute Supergirl and instead distributed this one or something like that. You know, it's down there deep. You're probably gonna have to expand the thing or whatever before you could do any searching.
I thought I did. My bad.
Nope. Yeah, you're in the spoiler section. Go up a little bit. There. Stop. There. 48 more. Click on the 48 more.
Oh, I see.
There you go. So I know that, and I do know that were some legal issues with it. And that's why when we talk about NeverEnding Story, a lot of times we're talking about the NeverEnding Story, even though there is a 2 and a 3 that were both made, but they were made a lot later because there were some legal troubles.
Oh, easy for you to say.
Yeah. The writer wasn't overly excited about things. He sued him trying to get the name off the movie.
Oh, really?
He failed. You know, so I think that they're, and that's what, when it came time for the sequel, all the actors had kind of aged out of it.
Oh, sure.
So they did a sequel that didn't quite finish it off. And yeah.
That's at that point, why would you make a sequel if you don't have any of the original things? Because, I mean, the movie ends, I mean, obviously it was a bit of a spoiler, but the movie ends with the narrator being like, and then Bastian went about his everyday life. But that's a story for another day.
And that's part of the thing, too, is the movie that we watched, The NeverEnding Story, is actually only the first half of the book.
Oh, really?
They had planned to do a sequel right away. and there wasn't really a good ending. So Wolfgang Peterson, which we didn't mention, Das Boot, Wolfgang Peterson, Enemy Mine, Wolfgang Peterson.
Yes, the classic.
Just made up that ending. And that was one of the things that the writer didn't like. He didn't like that the fantasy world came into the real world at the end there. He thought it should always be that it does end up that Bastian, the kid reading the book, goes into Fantasia, but it's kind of like a Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe thing, right? He goes into the fantasy world. It doesn't come out.
Sure.
And that kind of thing. So.
Well, I mean, and that's interesting because I didn't necessarily interpret that as like the fantasy world, like actually coming through. Like, obviously, I mean, he's flying around on Falcor chasing these bullies and stuff.
Right.
But that was a sort of thing where I was like, the whole point of this at the end is that Fantasia is what you make of it. So I was just like, well, that's just Fantasia. Like, he just is imagining the modern day.
Yeah, you could definitely play off that way. Like I said, they didn't have an ending, so they just kind of tagged that one on.
Yeah.
And then that was one of the things that they didn't like. Spoiler alert, I guess. He actually goes back in and he kind of becomes a ruler for Fantasia who makes up things just for him to fight them.
He's a bit of a despot.
Yeah, kind of gets a little is a sad tale, I guess. So I don't know. Maybe that's why I didn't quite land or whatever. But
interesting. I kind of do want to watch that though.
Well, they said the actual sequel that was made, I think it was in the 1990 NeverEnding 2, actually finishes. It does kind of pull off that story a little bit, but I don't think that it was exact. I don't know. Like I said, I mean, that's the thing. When we talk NeverEnding Story, I know there's a NeverEnding Story 2 and NeverEnding Story 3. I don't think I've ever seen 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So NeverEnding Story was my story and I called it good, so.
Well, and I think it really, John Wesley Shipp's in the second one. Sorry, he was played Flash.
Yes, in the Flash, right? It was wasn't he the original?
Yeah, what's his Jake Eric?
Yes,
that's what it is. I kept wanting to say Guy Gardner because I've been reading a lot of Green Lantern. Anyways, I mean, I think the first one, it really, like, even though it definitely obviously directly sets up a sequel, I mean, it really does just sort of stand on its own.
Right.
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
And I did see too, we talked about how it's not streaming necessarily, but there's something in the IMDb trivia that mentions Kathleen Kennedy, trying to go out and get the rights to do a remake in like 2011.
Interesting.
And her takeaway was that it'll never be done, probably because of all the legal issues and stuff like that. So,
yeah, Kathleen Kennedy said that problems securing the rights to the story may mean a second adaptation is not to be. Well, she must have just really not cared that much.
Right.
I mean, at this point, 2011, would she have been in? Oh no, Kennedy Marshall Company. Never mind. I was going to say, would she have been at Lucasfilm at this point? But
she's got the clout. I don't know. So.
Right now, she's definitely
she was involved in the prequels, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
right.
she would have been involved in Lucasfilm at that point. But.
So she would have been involved in some way, but she tried to get this for her own company. That's kind of weird.
Which, if she would have thrown around the Lucas money, this strikes me as a property that Lucas would have been all over if we think of Willow or something like that. Oh,
yeah, definitely. That's actually a really good point. Although at the same time, do you think, 2011, if it had been a Lucasfilm production, do you think that the CGI would have just been way over the top?
That's all shot on green screen. Yeah. I mean,
especially when we start to think about like some of the quote unquote monsters and characters in Fantasia, I could definitely see some Lucas CGI going crazy there.
Yeah, when nobody was telling him no. Yeah.
Yeah, just Jar Jar Binks. Oh no. Can you imagine if Jar Jar Binks were in this movie?
Well, it's interesting that you say that. So there is a shot when they are, there's the shot where they are in the ivory tower or whatever at the beginning, and there's all those alien races standing around. If you zoom out, there's a Yoda, there's C-3PO,
really?
There is E.T., and what else did there's a bunch of them in there. If you it's kind of in the same way that, when you go back to Phantom Menace, you can actually see E.T.s, and stuff. So it's that kind of thing where they're kind of plugging it together. Well, and that's the thing is we didn't necessarily talk about the story of this movie, but the NeverEnding Story originally was a German film. It was German release. Wolfgang Peterson, of course, did it. And what happened is he talked to Steven Spielberg to get it because they were friends and they worked together to get it more U.S. palpable, right? To go in there and make it so for U.S. audiences. And Spielberg did some things. I mean, he basically, I don't think they really cut much out. They cut out like a few seconds here and there just to kind of up the pace a little bit. Like it cut down like 7 minutes.
Oh, okay.
It added the pop song in there. That wasn't in there.
Which obviously was a good choice.
All the music wasn't in there before. And there was just a couple little edits like that he did to bring it over into the U.S. So I'm wondering if maybe there was a little bit of After Effects reference there for Spielberg when we talk about all those other aliens that are involved.
That definitely makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you mentioned that like it was changed bringing it over to America. And so now I'm imagining like the NeverEnding Story, but it's shot like a German expressionist film. It's like it's shot like M from 1928.
Well, if you go out and look at it, and it definitely was. So, you know, the opening right now, the version we saw, the opening credits had the clouds and stuff, but it had the pop song going in the background. The original German one was just black screen, white text flashing up there with just some haunting, you know, some fantasy-esque music just kind of playing in the background, you know, and stuff like that. And there's a couple things they changed, like, for example, the titular dead horse scene, the drowning horse scene.
Yeah, R.I.P. Artax.
In the German, there is no sound or no music during that. You can actually hear the horse making some weird noises, some scared noises and stuff. So Spielberg changed that up a little bit. He threw in a little bit of music on that, you know, and stuff, and kind of drowned out the scared horse noises. But
yeah, well, that scene is hard. I can imagine if you were just watching the horse drown. Oh man.
Yeah, there's a lot. So the Noah Hathaway, Atreyu.
Yeah.
When he goes to, according to one of the things I saw, when he goes to cons, he will take a basket with $1 bills and say anybody who needed psychological support after seeing the horse die can take $1.
That's hilarious. That's funny. That's funny talking about a horse dying.
Yeah.
I do that scene. Obviously, it's incredibly emotional, but that was one of the first scenes where I was watching the movie and I was like, oh man, some of these themes are like just perfect, like children's storybook material.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like it's just written so well.
I am kind of curious, you know, after reviewing this and going back and looking at it, I'm kind of curious about the book. I know that there's been, of course, English translations of it. I think it said 1983 was the first English edition of the book and stuff. So I'm kind of curious to go back and check it out.
Read it to Rosie.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
I think she would enjoy the horse part. It's incredibly tough to watch. I was very surprised. I mean, obviously, I was also surprised at how early it was in the movie.
Yeah.
Like obviously, like I said, I'd seen that scene. That definitely seemed like a second or third act kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But it happens like 25 minutes into the movie, like 10 minutes into when we're in Fantasia.
And when we're walking in there, when you know, and it's kind of fun when, you know, he's walking and the camera is just on Atreyu. And I noticed it more than I did as a child. But when you're watching, you kind of see Atreyu stop, like the horse stops and he, you know, and that's when and of course I knew, I was like, oh crap, here it is, you know, and stuff. But it is one of those things that, it hurts you to your soul. There was rumors, you know, that the horses died, but that wasn't the case. They said they had 2 different horses and they had to spend 7 weeks, it said, just training them not to jump out of the mud.
Oh yeah.
So they're on a lift bringing them down, you know, but so, I mean, those horses should win some kind of award for not wanting to do their instincts, which is to get out of that thing as they're drowning slowly.
That is an interesting, we should lobby for a new category in the Oscars, best animal actor.
Right.
Best supporting animal. I just, that scene, it was very, very well done. I mean,
yes.
It was one of those things, like I said, I mean, the themes, I wish it had been like the sort of thing. Well, no, actually, now that I say that, it's fine. Because, you know, when Artax is going down, there's a part where he's literally talking to, Atreyu talking to Artax, and he says, you know, don't let the sadness overcome, or don't let it overtake you. And it's like, this is literally just, an allegory for depression in the most like unsubtle way possible, but in the perfect way for like children.
Right.
I mean, the idea that Atreyu, after losing his, what one would assume, I guess, is like his best friend, I guess. I mean, we don't really see him talk to anybody else, but he then continues on and keeps pushing and keeps fighting and eventually saves Fantasia. I mean, that's just a great message.
Well, and you can, and they don't harp on it much. That was one of the things that Spielberg cut out too, is the whole purpose of this, or the whole thing going on with Bastian, is that they just lost his mom.
Yeah.
And of course, it's a dad and a son trying to figure it out. In the book, I think it said the dad is just much more depressed, and in the German cut, there's a little bit more at the very beginning of Bastian just kind of waking up and moping around and stuff like that. And you kind of see that sadness, right? So, I mean, obviously that's like you say, it's a quick allegory right away to how he's doing in that instance. So.
Yeah, it would have served to at least have like one little line of dialogue, say when he's in the attic reading the book, like halfway through,
right?
Especially when you get to the end, right? And the idea is that the way to save Fantasia is to say the name of this empress or whatever,
right? He's
already picked it out. It's his mom's name, right? But then like that's the kind of thing that you show that he's actually struggling to say it, I guess, and then show him face that fear or whatever, rather than what we kind of got, which was just him, being like, tell me what to do, and then yelling and everything's okay.
Well, that is, that's the thing with the story. It's kind of neat because, you get towards the end and you see Atreyu in that cave, and you see in the cave paintings that are everything that's happened, right? Mm-hmm. So you get the impression, and I think there's actually something to it in the book where the story just every time somebody reads a book, it just keeps going over and over again, right? And it's kind of a metaphor, I suppose, for being creative and writing your own story and that kind of thing, and that's what's going on there. So when you pull all that together, it's I don't know, it brings in some of those themes that you see in some of these sci-fi fantasy shows that I think really hit pretty good. So
yeah, I think it was definitely done. It was definitely done very well. I will say, however, despite that some of the dialogue is very poorly written. There are a lot of lines where I was like, okay, I get that it's a children's movie, but come on.
Right.
Like, for example, there's like, it must be right in the beginning when we've got the bat writer guy,
right?
This dumb bat or whatever, and then the snail writer, and the guy's like literally just explaining what's happening, and he's re-saying what just got said 3 minutes ago.
Right.
It's like, come on, do we need to say that twice in this span?
We need some good children's exposition there just to make sure. And even back then, we knew that children had a short attention span. It was difficult. So.
Yeah, it wasn't just TikTok. But overall, I mean, for starters, the design of like the creatures. I keep wanting to say monsters, but we don't see him do anything monstrous really. Of the creatures is just really phenomenal. Like it was the same sense, the same feeling that I got when we watched like Labyrinth or The Dark Crystal.
Well, and we're back to practical effects. We're back to the fun practical effects we see. Where when you're doing things, you're doing creature effects. We talked about it. If it's a George Lucas thing, we've got nothing but the crazy CGI. But in this instance, we've got a giant rock guy or rock biter or whatever. We've got the opposite of that, which is a snail rider, right? Yeah. And we'll come back to him. And then I think that, and then of course you get the shot of all the people in the audience,
tower,
right?
Yeah.
In the Ivory Tower, you got the two-faced people or whatever, where they share the middle eye. Just the freaky stuff that you do there. And again, it's kind of fun to think of in this instance, you've got it's like all the different imaginations, right? Or the fact that all these people are created out of somebody's imagination. So what I'm wondering is, are these all the creation of the bookstore guy? I mean, is he the weird one who thinks of people with two heads? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely good. How many times, if it changes every time you read the book, is he just reading it over and over again?
I assume, like the titular, the rock biter and those guys are all main characters because that's got to be written on the pages. But
oh, sure. Although I do like the idea, you know, they say that it's Fantasia is like the realm of all of humanity's dreams or whatever. I like that idea, especially when you mentioned the fact that we've got like C-3PO and Yoda in there.
Right.
I like that a lot.
Well, and you know, it kind of harkens a little bit to was a Ready Player One, right?
Oh yeah.
When you're doing that kind of thing, when you've got this world in pop culture, you know that we're going to bring in those characters, right? We don't care about in our imagination. We don't care about copyright laws.
Yeah.
Right? You know, we're going to have all those in there. If you're really talking about a world, certainly if I'm talking about, you know, if we're talking 84, we're talking about a kid who's seen Star Wars. Of course, they're going to be in his imagination, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, so let's see. This was released the year after Jedi.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So this would have been the height of it. I mean, it would have been top tier.
You betcha.
Surprised there's no Ewoks.
There should be a Boba Fett because nobody knew who Boba Fett was. They just knew he's cool.
Oh yeah, he was in the zeitgeist for sure. You know, you mentioned the librarian. That is a character that I wish had been in more than just, you know, that one scene.
Right.
I wish it had been like a situation where the like the bookstore owner knew the kid or knew the family, and so he knew that he had lost his mom, and so that's why he gave him the book.
Right.
But instead, he's just like, it's a book. And he's like, that's
and
it.
he's trying to dissuade him. You know, I don't know if there's something to the fact that he's like, yeah, you know, I'll tell him no, but even though I know a creative young boy is really going to get something out of getting this book, you know, and that sort of thing. Or, you know, it's the old Sword in the Stone, that the book finds who it wants next kind of thing, right?
That's interesting. So did he, when I guess in the beginning I had sort of interpreted, you know, that scene as him, you know, basically dangling the book in front of him and being like, ooh, take it, it's serious. But then he sort of looked at the note, you know, the note that Bastian left saying, "I'll bring your book back." And he looked at it and he was kind of like, oh, like he didn't expect him to take it. I don't know. It was very weird.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I think the whole point is just to get us to Fantasia, maybe.
Yeah.
So that could be the case. Like I said, the Spielberg at that point, he is cutting out stuff at the beginning just to get to the fanciful stuff early, you know, and stuff.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's the thing.
Well, and I also wonder, like, man, how is this kid gone in this attic at school for the entire day
and into the night? Absentee parents right off the bat. I mean, sure, yes, my wife just died, but if my son didn't come home from school and it's nighttime, I'd be curious what's going on there. Yeah.
Well, and obviously the teachers have talked to him at some point to tell him that he's not been in class. So presumably, you know, he would have talked to them now.
Oh yeah. Nowadays, yeah, you're a minute late and the power school gives you a notification, right?
Yeah.
So, now granted, it's the 80s, but I guarantee you, when I was riding my bike to school, if I didn't show up, the first person they'd call is mom.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Well, especially if you got a math test.
Yeah. Math test. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
But yeah, obviously and there is a scene that they did. The one full scene they cut out is there's one point where he is up in the attic and a janitor or something comes up there with a bunch of stuff to put in storage and he has to hide behind a shelf or something like that. And, you know, one of the things they said is they wanted to cut that just to make you feel like he was all alone and stuff. But like you say, is that realistic? You know, I know he can find his way into the attic, but at some point, yeah, I mean, how realistic is it that he can be gone that whole day? But, you know, we'll see this in a lot of shows. I mean, we talk about any children's shows that we're going to be covering here. The main point of them is that the kids are off doing whatever they want. Think of Goonies, right? They're out wandering all over the city, doing whatever they want. You know, now granted, there is I don't think at the end they're actually searching for him. I think it's just the beach cops actually see him there and call in the parents. So again, parents didn't care. They're just running free.
Well, yeah, it was a different time. You know,
I mean,
whatever. Come home when the lights are on.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I guess I do kind of like that from the standpoint of showcasing the fact that the idea is that he's alone, right? I do sort of like that, but that's another situation where it's like, if that's going to be a theme, if loneliness is a theme here, and he finds, you know, solace in these books and in these stories and stuff, say something about that at any point throughout the movie?
Well, and you gotta, I feel like you gotta kind of bookend it with the dad, right? Because at the beginning, we see Bastian, we see his dad not really being able to relate to him or help him out or anything like that. I think there's got to be something there. Now, like I said, in the book, he ends up being in the Fantasia world as the ruler for a little while and coming back, again, like a Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe kind of thing. And they make a point of him when he comes out, the first thing he does is tell his dad about all this stuff, and they kind of connect, and it kind of helps them, and that kind of thing. But again, if there was a way to use this as a grieving process or something, or bookend it in that way, you'd get a little bit of closure there, I suppose, or something. Just the dad being worried where he's at. Or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's definitely right. I mean, if you were going to make this like a story about the grieving process, then I would think that you would want to do it in a way, like you say, bookend it and have it in the beginning. The dad is like, keep your feet on the ground, keep your head out of the clouds. And then the son comes back later, and it's this process of experiencing Fantasia and having his head in the clouds that lets him come to terms with the loss of his mother.
Right.
And then he's a little bit better off and able to help his dad work through it. But like you said in the beginning, like the dad's like, just got to move on, and that's pretty much it. I don't know. But we will be back to talk a little bit more about this, the cast list, and some other exciting factors a little bit later after a brief word from our sponsors. These days, it's hard to know what's worth watching in the little free time you have at the end of the day.
We know you work hard and don't want to spend hours searching for the perfect movie.
So make things easier on yourself.
Let us do the looking for you.
Take a break from work and experience cinema.
Then come back and see if we like the movie as much as you.
With the New Wave Nerds, you can spend less time looking and more time watching and enjoying your day off.
Subscribe today.
And we're back. Now, I mentioned before the break that we we're going to be talking a little bit about the cast list. So, Dad, what's going on here?
Well, that's the interesting part. On all of these, we always find somebody fun, right? We always find a few people that we get to go back to them and stuff. The closest thing we would have to that, I suppose, would be Deep Roy. Deep Roy he's not our traditional little person actor. Oh, but he has been around for so long. He actually was, must have done the body for Yoda in Empire Strikes Back, because it's uncredited. But he was in that. He was in the Marky Mark, Planet of the Apes. He was an ape child. Oh, so we got your Planet of the Apes connection. He was Keenser in the current Star Treks.
Is that the alien that's chilling out with Simon Pegg?
Yeah, the little dude who's always sitting everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, here we go.
And of course, he's every Oompa Loompa in the modern Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Hey,
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I always forget that.
I hate that movie so much. Well, I can't stand it.
Willy Wonka's better.
Well, yeah.
Gene Wilder.
Gene Wilder.
Yeah.
I every time I almost say Gene Hackman.
We may have to do that one of these days just for the fun of it.
That would definitely be a fun one.
He's been around forever. I mean, he is one of those guys that the name is out there.
Oh, he was a Transformers 2.
An Egyptian guard. He was, yes. So, but yeah, he's an interesting little man. Like I say, I don't think he's officially a Willow or a Time Bandit.
Oh, sure.
But
he was in something called Return of the Ewok, which I've never heard of.
No, and now we got to find that out. He was also he's the blue piano player in Return of the Jedi.
Really?
Uncredited, it says. But
that's funny.
Yeah. So I mean, the dude's been around. So he's our only real connection. And there you go. When we do Flash Gordon, we're going to see him as well.
Additional performer in the Dark Crystal.
Well, of course he was. And there you go.
What? Greystoke.
He was a monkey somewhere.
He was a monkey.
Yeah. And that's probably how he got his job in Planet of the Apes.
Oh yeah, definitely. The old Doctor Who as well. So this guy, yeah, he's definitely gotten around. He's got quite a memorable face.
Yeah, I think he just recently passed too. I think I actually remember when they announced it, but yeah, 2022.
I feel like, I don't know, probably not from something that we've discussed here, but I feel like this Gerald McRaney fellow looks familiar.
Now, where I know
Bastian's
him
father
is he was in a TV show back in the day. Dad, something dad.
Dad.
Yeah. Father, something, I don't know.
Major
Dad. That's what it was. Yes. I remember that series. It was on for a few years where he was, military dad of girls, of course, and the comedy ensues.
Oh, yes.
But he's a character actor, that I think has been around a little bit as well. But beyond that, when we talk about our main cast, so the princess, she was a dancer or something like that.
I'm sorry.
No.
Before we move on, Gerald McRaney is Raymond Tusk in House of Cards.
There you
so
go.
He's like
so you got your House of Cards. See, I haven't got around to that one.
Oh yeah, he's a cool character too. He's like this. If I remember correctly, I haven't seen it in a while, but he's like a CEO who is like also trying to like play the game with against Frank, but sometimes alongside him. It's really cool.
He reminds me, of that era. I mean, he probably could have been a military guy in, I think of War Games, right?
Oh yeah,
that kind of character. Yeah, that he really sticks out to me.
He's definitely got that vibe. He's definitely a very stuck in the mud kind of guy. Keep your feet in the ground.
Oh, Simon and Simon. That was a huge show. I mean, that's a TV movie, but there was a series called Simon and Simon, and he was one of the Simons.
One of the Simons. Two brothers of disparate tastes. A private detective agency.
Oh yeah, I remember that one being on a lot. That was probably one that Mom and Dad were watching.
That sounds amazing. Oh man,
it's a classic.
Some of these old TV shows are just so good.
They're worth every minute you spent watching them. But and remember, they made 20-some episodes a season.
That's true.
No small feat.
You read the descriptions of like these TV shows from like the 80s and the 90s. They just don't make TV like that anymore. I mean, like what they would never make a show like that today.
No, I mean, and we talk about and I just recently went down a Die Hard rabbit hole with Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis in Die Hard. Nobody thought he was going to be an action star because his only credit before then, or his main credit before then, was he was a private investigator on a TV show called Moonlighting. Oh. Right? It was just kind of a comedy. He was not an action guy.
Oh,
right?
A comedy.
So it was kind of a thing bringing him over into Die Hard and that sort of thing. So, those old shows, they really, it used to be back in the day, they would say that, TV was a lower end and then you moved up into movies.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
Nowadays, you watch those, those Apple TV series or Paramount Plus shows. I mean, they are just throwing money at the big actors, and the big actors are loving it. I remember an interview with Jason Isaacs, probably about 5-10 years ago. He said it used to be that the art was in the movie theaters and TV was just throwaway. But now it's the other way around. You can do more with television shows than you used to be able to. And he says, now that's where you go for good storytelling most of the time, because, and granted, we love all the Marvel movies. We love all the big action movies and that sort of thing. And we love that kind of stuff, but you got to admit that there is usually more of an opportunity to tell a long story in a TV series.
Sure. For sure.
In a TV drama, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So. And this is definitely a conversation from a different day. So in a second, we'll pivot back to whatever you're going to say about the Empress.
But, as far as, yeah.
But I feel like it from my perception, and maybe this is incorrect. I feel like a lot of that with TV shows being a more of a, like you say, art form. I feel like a lot of that's because of HBO. Like
HBO, I mean, obviously, as soon as there wasn't even then, I don't even think there was much of a classification of prestige television until we got Sopranos.
Yeah.
Right? Sopranos was the one I think that really kind of kicked it off.
Well, when was The Wire? Was that after Sopranos?
I think
is that
so.
even HBO? I don't know. AMC is where it is now.
Yeah.
Oh no, it is.
I think
on Max.
it might have originally been an HBO show, and that might have been a Showtime show actually, or something. I don't know.
Showtime. That's actually another good point too. That's another quote unquote premium network.
Well, and we've been binging Dexter, which was a Showtime series, and stuff. So
are they doing a is it a prequel or something? Or
yes,
or
So we are just that. We've got 2 episodes left in the original series.
It's still going.
No.
Oh, you're
our
rewatching
binging, our rewatch.
Oh,
yes.
sorry, I understand.
Then they took a few years off and they came back and did a follow-up series because everybody hated how the finale was with that same actor. And now they're going back and doing a prequel when he's younger. And then they're coming back later, I think, in a little while and bringing back Michael C. Hall for another series.
Oh, jeez.
To continue it. So Dexter is quite the thing.
Yeah, that's a little much. I've never seen that. I've never had the I've heard it's good. I've never had the desire to watch it ever.
I mean, it's another drama, and we talk. It's a prestige television in a way because they're doing things that you can't normally do, right, on television and stuff. And part of that again is because they're 13 episode seasons too, right? You can tighten your story down and encapsulate it.
Yeah, you definitely don't have to do filler. Like I've been rewatching Arrow for whatever reason.
Yes.
I'm in the first season, definitely a lot of filler. Like it's a good show. It's great in the beginning, but there's a lot of filler there. But the NeverEnding Story.
Yes, speaking of the NeverEnding Story. So yeah, we talk about cast, but there isn't a lot in this cast, and that's because, like I said, the princess was a dancer. She auditioned. She never wanted to be an actor. She's quit acting right after this movie. Even if they're going to do a sequel, she wasn't in on it because she didn't even sign up for the sequels. Nowadays they lock you up. No, I think it said in the trivia she had come back and done some acting more recently, like in 2018 or something like that. But she didn't want to do acting anymore. She just wanted to do theater and dancing.
Whoa, sorry, this is really cool. Theater and dancing. I was listening, I promise.
I believe you.
Half Scottish, half Israeli. Her father was David Stronach. Stronach?
It's easy for you to say.
An expert on Persian antiquities, and they had to flee Iran during the revolution. What a life.
Well, then she became the empress.
Oh, yeah.
And the funny thing is during shooting, she had lost her 2 front teeth, as kids do.
Oh, sure.
So they had implants in there, and she couldn't talk. She had kind of a lisp. So she had to go to a vocal training just to try to sound a little bit more clear.
I was going to ask about that because it definitely didn't look. I was going to ask if they'd like dubbed over her. Yeah. Because it didn't match up.
I think they had to come back and dub over because she had a bad lisp because of the implants or something. I don't know.
Which, yeah, I get why you'd want to, replace that. But
well,
at the same
and I think
time,
I heard too, Noah Hathaway, all his lines are dubbed by someone. There's something in the trivia that says none of his recorded lines are in there.
Wow.
Is what he says.
So we're seeing quite a trend in these recent My Father Before Me.
I guess so. We need the voice. Nobody was the total package back then, I guess.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
And so Noah Hathaway, he did this movie, and then he now he is a what do they say, a martial arts teacher and a tattoo artist.
Oh, wow.
And the other gentleman, the main Bastion, he hasn't done anything. So all these guys just kind of, this one didn't take off. Now, I don't know if that's a German production thing. I mean, I think they were US based actors. I don't know.
Well, so here in the Empress's, I'm not going to try and say her real name again. In the Empress's description, it says that they were in America at some point. So I don't know if that had been before or after the filming of this movie.
It did say something like she had, in an interview, she had mentioned she had like 3 auditions. And went over to she was in California or something, went over to Germany for the 3rd audition and stuff. But,
okay. And
that was kind of the reason she didn't like the acting, because she said it was stressful.
Sure. If we're I was trying to think of like if you were gonna get a young female actress to actually speak the lines at this time, and we got the Spielberg connection. Would you not think of like Drew Barrymore? I mean, she's like 10 at this time. So
right.
She would have been roughly the same age as Bastion.
So what, E.T. was 82? So
yeah, so a couple years after.
They probably had to go cheaper. I don't know.
No, yeah.
She might have been too much of a name at that point.
I don't know. At 8 years old, she's just bringing in bank.
She wasn't quite on the cocaine yet. That's inappropriate. Not appropriate.
Her talk show is tough to watch. Like, I respect that you're doing something, but it's tough to watch.
Well, it's not for you.
No, it's definitely not. But I can't stand that style. In any case, it is definitely weird, like, that we don't have really a single crossover.
There really isn't a lot of, we almost always get somebody, and like you mentioned, the dad, we've seen him in a few things. Deep Roy. other than that, yeah, nobody has really made it out of the NeverEnding Story. In fact, I think for the sequels, well, okay, so he was in It. The bully was in It.
Yes,
so there you
the incredible role of first bully.
go. Yes.
Chris Eastman. This is a good It too. Not that the new one's bad. It's just it's not the same.
Well, and his name in It was Belch. So there's a step up from first bully.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, speaking of Arrow, he's in an episode of The Flash.
Well, there you go.
He's a mall cop.
He's a mall cop. That's one of those, let's bring back people from old movies just to see if anybody recognizes something.
Oh, yeah. And guess what? Here's our psych.
I was going to say, he's on psych, for sure.
That's another really good point. I don't think anybody else from this movie has actually been in psych. And I know they've obviously talked about it and made jokes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I feel like if one of these people had been in the show, I would have recognized them. I almost always recognized them.
I'm willing to bet there was some NeverEnding Story theme or something like that. And half the background people just that the camera just happened to linger on were them, you know,
Probably.
or something. But just to see if we could figure them out. I got to say, yeah. So again, this isn't one that, you know, we watch Time Bandits and it's fun to see all those people.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about The Hobbit, Bilbo, you know, all the people who have come up and done that. But this movie, I suppose being a German production, because I don't think Germany was necessarily the height of cinema at the time. I mean, it mentioned that this was one of the highest budget German productions at the time.
Wow.
So I don't know if that kind of did it, but
that's okay. So here we go. Budget, an estimated 27 million in American dollars. So I don't know how accurate that would be.
I think it said 50 Deutsch.
Oh,
50 million Deutsch. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
I have no idea what the state of that economy would have been like in the 80s. I
You
mean,
never know.
Presumably, of course, this would have been East Germany, right? Or West Germany. Sorry, that was actually stupid.
I don't know which Germany.
That was an embarrassing
The good
mistake.
Germany. How about that? It's in the good Germany.
That was an embarrassing mistake. In any case, do you have any final thoughts?
I don't think so. A few things, you know, we didn't talk about. No, we did talk about Noah Hathaway a little bit. That dude got hurt a lot.
Oh, really?
Like there was when shooting, and you know, I don't think that there was a dangerous set or anything, but his foot got caught in the elevator and pulled him under the water.
Oh.
And I guess he was unconscious when they pulled him out.
Oh my God.
And
then they dubbed over his lines.
The scene
Can't catch a break.
The scene that we were talking about where, or that we didn't talk about much, where he finally meets up with Gamork, the big dog. When it comes jumping out at him, the claws hit him in the eye and he almost lost his eye.
Oh, man.
And then the contraption was so heavy that he couldn't breathe. It buried him when it jumped out at him there. Dude, yeah, he got, it was kind of a rough one. But.
Well, it was quite the adventure. You know, that's kind of crazy. I completely forgot about the dog.
That's the thing is he's kind of a throwaway thing. I don't know. He's only there to give you attention. Right.
Yeah.
And there's a scene in the, one of the scenes that they threw out due to budget, you know, when Falkor, the luck dragon, which we didn't talk about the luck dragon. The luck dragon is the one thing I remember as a kid more than anything. When he comes and saves Atreyu out of the swamp after he's talked to the giant turtle, there is a scene in the book, I think, or they were going to do it, but they couldn't afford it, where he was going to be trapped by some giant bugs, spiders or something. Atreyu was trapped and Falkor saves him. Right. But instead, all we get is the one scene of the dog running up there and jumping up and getting him. And that's it. So there is a scene that Spielberg cut out that actually gave you a full shot of the wolf at that point. But they decided to kind of keep it out and kind of keep him hidden. You know, I assume he's hearkening back to Jaws at that point.
Sure.
Where you don't see the bad guy. Right. Fully or something.
Well, yeah. And I mean, something like that works if there's that like suspense built throughout the entire film. Mm-hmm. But like you said, we hardly see it. It's like, it's just a background character. So not seeing it just hurts it even more.
And then the big final ending is the dog jumping and we cut away and we come back and he's stabbed him and it's done. Right. So, I mean, when you're doing that kind of stuff, he just does not. as a child, I remember thinking he was the bad guy.
Yeah.
Watching it now,
It's not
It's just kind of there. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there isn't really a bad guy. I mean, the bad guy, I suppose, is just like the nothingness,
Right.
which in and of itself is sort of like poignant and is a nice theme. The nothingness is the enemy.
Right.
Again, it's sort of another allegory for like, you know, obviously the loss of imagination and stuff like that, but depression in and of itself. There's a lot of good themes throughout this movie.
They tried a lot.
I just wish they had like hit some of them home.
Right.
You know, hit them a little harder.
Again, okay, so what are we looking at on the Willow scale here?
This is tough. So here's what I'll say. Again, like we talked about, I probably need to rewatch Willow. I feel like as a child, this is a better movie than Willow from a child's perspective, because I think it's more enjoyable. There's a lot more going on. You got a flying dragon. And as a child, I mean, this pertains to you more. As an adult, Willow, I think, is more fun, but I'd have to rewatch Willow because there were some really, really bad line reads in this movie.
I feel like Willow has more of a story structure.
Yeah.
And this one seemed, and granted, it's a very short movie, and that's because they only did half a book because they wanted to do sequels, right? So I guess maybe that works against it.
Yeah. I mean, but that's another another reason that you could have just added 5 minutes where, you know, what's a kid's name? Bastian talks to his dad and is like, "Hey, I'm working through this," you know, or something. I forgot. It's only like an hour and a half max. Mm-hmm. It's hour 42. So
I am kind of curious. So I've got on our list, I've got a few that are maybe less well known or kids movies from that day and age that I'm kind of curious about going back and revisiting too. So we'll be catching up to them here in a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Fun. Stay tuned. Make sure that you subscribe. Oh, geez. Make sure you follow our socials because we will be posting updates as to when our next My Father Before Me video will be going live. But with that, I think we'll leave you here and see you next time.